me great duty to introduce to the man of the hour. It was just amazing when I actually, when we were talking about this, and I were talking to Wayne, he was saying, hey, I think we should reach back out to Dick and to call him and see if he would be interested in coming and being our speaker for tonight. And I was a little nervous picking up the phone, but he's always been a good brother. He's always been a great mentor of mine. I mean, I came on in 1985. I can remember when I came on in 1985, and my first assignment in 1986 was the Germantown station, right down the street. And when I walked into that station my first day, there were only 7 other black officers in the entire station. And we had 7 shifts, and there was 1 per shift. Right? And that's real, right, James? That was real, right? And that was the flavor of the day. And I think Judge Johnson tells the story of when he graduated from the academy, they asked him where he wanted to go. He told them he wanted to go to the Wheaton district, and they said, oh, we already got one there. Right? Right? I know that's right. So people need to understand the history, because that's what's important here, and this is the history lesson that I think that we're really talking about tonight. And I know Dick is going to bring it and really kind of bring it home and say some things that I know that I have not heard. But it was just thrill my heart when I picked up the phone, and him and I have been communicating through Facebook, and when we actually connected, and he didn't even hesitate. He said, without a doubt, it would be an honor for me to come here tonight to speak before you all and be with you all. So I will do a brief intro, and then I will bring you the man of the hour. Chief Richard Williams was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and is the eldest son of Mary and Napoleon Williams. He's a 1959 graduate of Booker T. Washington High School in Chattanooga, and earned a Bachelor of Science degree in sociology from Tennessee State University in 1963. He is a U.S. Army veteran, which he served from 1963 to 1967, earning the rank of sergeant and completing a tour in the Vietnam War. He later earned his master's degree in public administration from American University. Chief Williams was appointed to join the Montgomery County Police Department in June of 1968, becoming the first African-American hired by Montgomery County, where he served, rising through the ranks during his 25-year career. He served as a captain, now known as a commander, for the Bethesda District, and he also served as a major, also known as an assistant chief, now known as assistant chief. Chief Williams retired from Montgomery County in June of 1993 and became the first African-American chief of police in Madison, Wisconsin. He retired there after a great career in 2004. But what people also don't know about him was that he actually, during his tenure, was actually selected to be the chief of police in Austin, Texas, and as well as in Seattle, Washington, which he turned down both of those appointments. He is a founding member, as many of you have heard tonight, of the Coalition of Black Police Officers, and he is a member of the greatest fraternity of all time, Alpha Phi Alpha. Talk to the hand. Speech done. He was a member of the Iota Epsilon chapter here in Montgomery County, and he is a founding member of the Boys and Girls Club in Rockville and Madison, as well as a founding member of the Ex-Offenders Construction Company. It is my honor to introduce to some, and welcome back for others, a great and courageous leader who helped to break down doors and provided a path for many of us yesterday and many of us today in law enforcement to reach goals and live our dreams. Frederick Douglass is quoted as saying, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." He went on to say, "This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, and it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will," quote unquote. Chief Williams helped to lead a struggle, and there are many successes to speak about today and yesterday to prove just that. Ladies and gentlemen, a great man here to help us celebrate 50 years of African Americans and Law Enforcement in Montgomery County, Maryland, Chief Richard Williams.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much for having me. I've been officially retired since 2004. When Marcus called me, I assumed that my visit was going to be covered would be covered by my expenses. I had to pay my airfare and my hotel room and then buy a table. Do me a favor, don't honor me anymore. I have a friend who is white who's just turned 89, and we're friends because we came up pretty much the same way. Here, me in Tennessee, and him in North Carolina. So he came in one day to the gym, and he was sitting and saying, "Man, I had to get up this morning, had a really bad stomach ache, so I had to drink some bourbon." I said, "Well, you drink bourbon for breakfast?" He said, "Yeah, whenever I have a headache, I drink scotch." So I said, "You drink scotch when you have a headache?" He said, "Yeah, anytime I have any other kind of pain, I drink gin." So I said, "What about water?" He said, "Well, I've never been that sick." Thank you for all the accolades, even with my fraternity brother there, Marcus. But actually, you guys really don't know me. And I'd like to kind of wind up a little bit to tell you a little bit about me. He told you I'm the eldest son out of a family of 12, 6 brothers and 3 sisters. Born in Chattanooga, and until I was 18, I really didn't know how marginalized I was. I could remember our father going down the boat when I was about 9. And he was talking to my mother. He said, "You know, I can only boat if I pay a pole tax." So he came back after boating, and my sister said, "Daddy, where's your pole?" And she said, "Well, it's not that kind of pole." What kind of pole? And he couldn't explain us to him, but he cried. Because for the first time, he began to feel the weight of being an African American in Chattanooga. So, for that, graduated from high school, went to Tennessee State, and by the way, I was one of the second recipients to receive a student loan. It's all of $50. 59, that was a lot of money. I could buy a pair of jeans for $3 and shoes for 3 more. So I came in, a marginalized African American, like so many who grew up who didn't know, their place. My mother, when she went shopping for shoes for us, she would measure our feet with a string. We always thought that was funny, because she could not go in the store with us to try on shoes. I mean, that was the way things were, and let's face it, you accepted it or you didn't. Our father didn't get full health insurance until he was 61 years old. So every time someone got sick, there was a choice to be made. Do you pay a bill, do you buy food, or do you get this kid's tonsils taken out? Well, I was that kid, and I didn't get mine taken out until I was 49. But it was a wonderful community, a wonderful family. But like so many other communities, African American communities, Kengar, Tobytown, you can name all in Montgomery County, always had to be around some poor industrial area, or in the case of Kengar, right along the railroad track. I mean, just think of Rockville, Maryland. They put the red line right over top of that community. So we're always being marginalized. Things changed for me when I got to college, because in my freshman year in 1959 was the first student sit-ins at a lunch counter. I know that probably doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you could only order food by standing beside and ordering when everybody else was finished, I mean, that was tremendous. I had learned throughout my life to walk without knowing it with my eyes cast down. The second year, my sophomore year, I came out of that. I remember going to Fisk University and listening to Martin Luther King speech. And he talked nonviolence. I left that speech, I couldn't get in because it was full. I left that speech and I was doing some cuss words all the way back to my room. I mean, how in the hell did this guy ever think you're gonna do a group of people who know nothing but violence, who know nothing but power, and you're gonna do this by turning the other cheek? Ain't gonna happen, Blake. That was what I said. And obviously I was wrong. But what it did for me, by the time I graduated, I was no longer looking down. I was looking straight ahead. So when I volunteered for the Army, I was to go into an OTS program as a lieutenant. I got to San Antonio to Fort Sam Houston, and somehow the records got balled up, so I missed my cycle, my class cycle, and wound up being a medic trained in the hospital, and eventually wound up in Vietnam and came home. And when I got home in '67, I guess what? I got a letter saying, you can enroll in the OTS. I didn't bother to respond because I didn't think I could be civil about it. I had opportunity. I was married by this time. My wife was an elementary school teacher, taught at 12th and S right down in Northwest Washington. And I was a post distributor. I delivered 1,500 newspapers every day and 2,000 on Sunday. The riots happened. I could remember going home, going to the school through all that traffic and all that smoke to get my wife. My business was destroyed by the time I was able to get on the street. I saw 2 white police officers. Now you could imagine in Southeast Washington, Mississippi Avenue, where all the project were. A pretty tough neighborhood. These guys were standing in front of the 7-Eleven while kids were looting the place. They were unarmed. And when I finally got a chance to talk to them, I said, "Who are you? Are you sure you're the police? I mean, everybody else is running around with, with their helmets and their guns and port arms in cars." And they said, "Well, we're doing something called community policing." I came back, told my wife, I said, "I think I found something I want to try." So I signed up, passed the civil service, went to the DC Police Department to take my exam, and this is honest God's truth. I'm going through the physical, and the guy says, number 116, go out, take the first door to the left and go and follow that. And I'm number 116. I opened the door and it was to the parking lot. So I said, well, it must be some mistake. I'm a Vietnam veteran, I'm black, and you guys need me, and I got a college degree. I mean, what? And I had shoulder surgery earlier that year. They finally explained that any surgical scars had to be at least a year old. So I'm despondent. And my cousin's husband said, "Well, why don't you go to Rockville?" I said, "Where? Rockville? What is that?" I lived on Southern Avenue, so I knew PG County, but he's saying, "Rockville? Where's Rockville?" So I went to Rockville finally about 2 weeks later, walked into the county office building, such as where it was, and said, "I'd like to make an application for the police department." He was like, "Are you sure you don't want to go like sanitation?" I said, "No, I want to make applications for the police department." So after some scurrying around, they finally brought me an application, and the desk clerk, the lady said, "We're not hiring." I said, "Well, I'm going to put one in anyway." Lucky for me, there was a saint in that department named Wally Robinson. Some of you probably know him. That if it wasn't for Wally, man, all the strides that we could have made back in those days would not have happened. So he called me. And just a second to set the record straight, now I was not the first police officer hired. That was Lawton Frazier. But Lawton Frazier, I was the first African American to actually be on the shift, hit the street. Heck, I was doing police work 3.5 months, and I had never been to record school. So, and from the way things were done, I really need to go. Because it was all or nothing. You do what I say or you get a whipping. You know, it's all of us do it. So, I go, and I'm assigned to the Bethesda district. My first roll call. I mean, you can imagine this now. You got 14 other people and the sergeant and the corporal, and he's reading the briefing or the roll call. He says, "We've got 2 jigaboos," and I never heard, so I didn't even know to be offended. Because you know, I heard nigger, I heard a whole bunch of, but jigaboos was a new one for me. So Harold Dillard said, look, he says, you know, I'm really sorry about what the corporal said. I said, well, what did he say? He said, well, you know, jigaboo is the same as the N-word. So I said, well. So here I am. People say, okay, tell us why you really did. Did NAACP send you? Did the federal government send you? I said, no, man, I just needed a job. So gradually, as I'm going through all the processes, I began to discover that Montgomery County was this huge place, and it just wasn't Bethesda, Kensington, and so forth. It's a huge place. 2 years after that, I was assigned, I applied for it, and I was assigned to something called community relations. And I had found my niche. Because police officers, even all the places I've gone to apply for jobs, are afraid to talk to people. And it just really didn't make sense to me. I would rather develop a relationship with somebody over time than to always think of them as the enemy and me as the enemy. I can remember going to Rockville, for example, Lincoln Park. We're there on a Saturday and we're giving out balloons and things. We're also doing fingerprinting. For a little, you know, you press on the card and you add little whiskers to make it look like a mouse. This lady grabbed her son and said, little boy must have been about 4. Don't you give them your fingerprints because they can track you down. So, I mean, when stuff is funny to me, I'm sorry, I just laugh. You give us a lot more credit than we deserve. We can't even track down the adults. So, but I began to see, I mean, really see, this was a population, poor whites, poor blacks, they're just ignored. I mean, so you talk to them, it was tough. I mean, I've been going into some white neighborhoods in Rockville and, you know, they call me some negative words. I have to tell me what that means. I don't know. Why do you dislike me so much? So gradually, as I explored, you know, I mean, Rockville, Maryland, the station, I mean, that would go all the way to Sugarloaf. I mean, it was, you could travel there for years in order to get to a call. Anybody remember Bud's Tavern? That was a place you didn't want to go. Some mean dudes up in there, boy. But you go in and talk to people when there is no emergency. You'd be surprised at the number of people who just, you know, pinch me. I'm the same as you. And when guys would, you know, be in the car, and I know you've experienced this, somebody says, there's a robbery on Rockville Pike. The suspect looks to be like a white male, about 6 foot tall, and about 180 pounds. Somebody will come on the air and bury it. Could that be a black female about 5'2", and weigh about 125 pounds? You know, I'm serious. There are people here, I'm sure, who have heard that. So there was a lot of work to do. So because I didn't come in on anything except that I just wanted a job. And once I got in and saw that there was work to do, but I also saw that more African Americans they were hiring, most of them never got past probationary states. So that was where the coalition came in. We were saying if we don't do something, we're going to be the only ones here. So Chief Watkins, by this time I'm in the police department headquarters. We asked to meet with him. And we were saying, look, we want help. We think we can recruit. We think we'd be glad to sit on boards. We'd be glad to do anything. And we were having a nice conversation. We asked him, and I know Mike would remember, said, do you have any questions? He said, yeah, why do black people wear dark glasses at night? and we were kind of snickering among ourselves, but I thought, well, at least he was honest enough to ask a question. So I went back and I said, I don't really know either. So we got on boards, and so many of the things, I mean, it was, looking back on it now, I mean, all of us should have just been angry to the point of just, I mean, real, truly angry, because they were just neutralizing us right and left. I go into a recruiting cycle. We get people, well, this guy's shoes are too big, this guy's head is too small, you know. It was stuff like that. And sitting on those boards, you'd have a list that would come out, I'm keeping score, I'm going down, you know, someone got 92, this one got 90. I'm looking at the final product, I'm saying, wait a minute, this doesn't look anything like mine. Well, they were added things, no, you're not doing that. Not doing that. This is it, and then, you know, if I have to go to the papers, do what you're supposed to do. So we're progressing, and we got actually pretty good at doing what we did. Then, moving ahead, we got so good, we ran Tony Fisher for sheriff. Yeah, so I'm walking past, my secretary comes in, our secretary comes in, and she's muttering to herself. And I asked her, I said, Lynn, what's it? She said, you ought to see what they're doing in there. So I walked into the crime prevention office. There's a major in charge of patrol, the captain in charge of the Rockville district, and our lieutenant. And what they had done is they had drawn a caricature of Tony with the big lips and the big hair. So I got that. I mean, they were laughing so hard you would have thought that they were watching a good movie. So I got that and went directly across the way to the county executive. I said, I need to see the county executive right now. So I showed it to him. I said, look, I'm going to give you 5 hours to get this straight. If not, I'm going to the press. He did it because when I walked back over to the police building, who should I see in the elevator but the major? And he's staring at me, and I'm staring right back at him. So all that, we're going and we're going and we're going and we're going along, and things were starting to really get better. More people were coming in, more understanding. We were really talking to the community as community members rather than somebody we had to talk to. And then one day, I'm coming out of the police building, and there's this gentleman sitting on the side. I knew his wife, but I didn't know him. He asked me a question. He says, Sergeant, where are you going? And I'm thinking, it's 12 o'clock. This guy's stupid. I'm going to lunch. He says, no, I mean, where are you going? Well, that was Lucky Lester. He was a Tuskegee airman whose claim to fame was he had shot down 3 Messerschmitts over journeying in 30 seconds. He took me under his wing. I became his mentee. And he taught me. You can't get any place unless you get another degree. I'm thinking, man, I just barely got a bachelor's degree. I don't want to do that. But it turns out that he helped me and other people helped me. You get into American University, and I actually graduated, centennial graduation. And then came the other opportunities. I started really concentrating on trying to get ahead. I tried to bolster other people. Hey, you gotta get more education. You gotta be able to see the big picture, because you can't change things if you're on the outside looking in. From day one, when I was a sergeant, I understand that, because you get to hear things and see things, how policy is developed, and what you're doing is carrying it out without any input, and that can be disastrous from time to time. So we got to the point that now a chief's vacancy comes along. And I said to my wife, I said, I think I'm ready. I'm going to apply for this. And sure enough, one morning at 2:30, I get the call. And it's Potter. He says, can you go into my house? I said, okay, I thought everybody was asleep. So he says, well, you're my selection for the chief of police of Montgomery County. So I said, well, thank you very much. I'm 51 years old. 2 days later, I'm sitting in the outer office of the county executive, all polished up, getting ready to sign the papers to be the first African-American chief. And I hear them discussion. It went on for a half an hour, and then it was an hour, and then it was an hour and a half. And I said, this is not, you know, intuitively I'm saying, oh, this does not look good. So they told me, well, go ahead, you know, the executive would contact you. So we were talking to Andy Sonner. He really doesn't like you being selected. So I went home. A day later, a morning later, I get another call on Wednesday morning, 1:30 in the morning. Can you come to my house? And I went to his house again. And he says, well, Dick, you know, the sharks are in the water. And, you know, he says, you know, I'm going to have to rescind. And I said, look, I'm 51 years old. I got enough scars on my body that would make you shameful if you could see them all. I said, I grew up as an African American, and you won't know what that's like. I didn't apply for this job. I didn't think I could handle it. So, but I realized, having just taken a deep breath and saying, if I got the state's attorney who is not for me, then all the other executives that I would have to be in charge of, I said, I want to do a good job. But I said, you know, it's just not going to be. My wife didn't take it so kindly. So I said, honey, put the gun down. It's my decision, just put the gun down. So Potter, he had nerve that he did come to my house. And he sat down and Pat laid him out. And she said the same, how could you do that? Well, where are your morals? Where are you? Well, he says, you know, you don't have any cojones. But it stood. He selected Clarence Evans. I went to Clarence Evans' investiture and stayed the whole time. Because I'm saying it's not me, but he is black. And we will get that opportunity. Later on, Madison, Wisconsin called. Well, we'd like you to apply. I said, man, I'm not serving at the pleasure of any mayor. And he said, well, our chiefs in Wisconsin don't serve at the pleasure of the mayor. They serve at the police and fire commission. So, okay, I began to get interested. So I go there with nothing to lose. And they asked me, why do you want to be here? And I said, well, I'll have to be honest with you, I like your cheese. And, you know, I'm a major now, I'm an assistant chief. I'm sitting in my office and Sandy comes in and says, there's some people who come to see you. I'm thinking, no relatives I know it would be coming. It was the entire Police and Fire Commission. They'd been all over the county, including talking to Andy Sonner. And he told me, he says, Andy Sonner speaks fairly highly. He says, well, Dick speaks like a white man. They were appalled at that. Saying, you know, I said, well, look, this is the Mason-Dixon line. We're below the Mason-Dixon line. We've come a long way, but we got a huge history of segregation and marginalization. I mean, just, we've come a long way, but so I was hired. I went there. Again, anywhere in the United States where African-American people live as a group, you'll find them in industrial areas. I grew up beside a railroad repair depot. The place that we had, my final place in Shepherd, Tennessee, was split down the middle. I mean, the entire community, certain gas station, service, you know, food, everything, split down the middle by a superhighway. Go to Milwaukee, same thing. Go to Chicago, it's the same thing. So all the self-sustaining black communities that were, even though they were marginalized, they were still available, vibrant, and really moving forward. Got destroyed because of that. Like I said, I mean, Rockville, Maryland has the red line going over Lincoln Park. I mean, that's almost, you can't even imagine how that could have happened. So, police and fire guy takes me in, he's a labor guy. So we're going around, I don't know the city. So he finally says, well, we're in South Madison. And of course, you know who was in South Madison, all the black people. So you clean this up, and you'll be a great chief. So I said, well, you know, I might as well turn around and go back to D.C. right now because I don't work like that. I said, I came because I don't serve at the pleasure of the mayor, so I'm going to do what I need to do in order to get things the way they should be. And he came back, well, I don't think this guy's going to work out. So, but I stayed 10 years. And I really stayed probably 4 years too long after my wife had died by that time, so I was really struggling. My daughter, I forgot to introduce you, sweetheart. My daughter Tammy and her husband, our great friend Ruthie, and my nephew, Mario. But you know, once you're inside and you begin to see how things are, and people begin to understand that you understand how things work and that you actually can do something, I began to get inquiries from every place. I mean, I went to Austin actually to serve on the chief's panel, and then he wound up saying, you know, we want you. And I said, man, I don't want to be in Texas. I really don't. But the more they talked about it, and then again, I got to see the Hispanic community, I got to see the African American community, and you get the University of Texas, who's right there. But I thought, you know, it'd be foolish for me, my wife is sick, to accept this, so I humbly declined. So, but coming back, what I noticed, and I need to share this with you, when I was in Vietnam, I was in a medical company. Had gone to, and you know, I used to, because I was a medic, I would go to Saigon with convoys. Had this really nice guy named Gary Crusader, who said, you know, I know you go, would you consider letting me take your place? And I jokingly say, well, if you got $10, I'll let you go. So he got there. About 3 clicks out, we heard the explosion, saw the black smoke going up, knew it was a convoy. But Gary Crusader lost both his legs in that explosion. And I breathed a sigh of relief. Whew, thank God it's not me. But then I began to think how, God, but it's Gary. I mean, he's still, if it weren't for me, he wouldn't have, he'd been in, yeah, I would be legless and he would be, you know, feeling sorry for me. Later on, by the time I was ready to go to Seattle, I discovered that I had PTSD, depressed, just really in a state, and so worried about my children that I knew I couldn't concentrate on trying to do the job. Now, I had built three decentralized stations. I mean, just way back when the Klan was recruiting in Montgomery County, we found some perfectly made little crosses outside of Northwood High School in the woods. And there were people who were just kids with pranks. But there was a guy who was in our unit named Bill Green. Some of you may have known Bill. He said, no, this is something that we need to follow up on. So here's where this whole collaboration thing comes in. We decided we needed to do something. So instead of trying to do it ourselves, we went to the Human Relations Commission and said, you know, there's hate violence in this community that has been going unnoticed and uncharted because everybody's saying that it's not important. That a kid can build a cross being recruited by the Klan, but we will say, it's a prank. But we were able to get to do that with Montgomery County. The executive signed off on it. He didn't really know what he was signing off on. But it called for all human relations commissions throughout the state of Maryland to begin to record these hate violence acts that were going on. So you later know that, and we teamed up with John Conyers when he was in Congress with another senator done. Now we have an act that took almost 18 years to get. Well, that started right here in Montgomery County because the guy said cross burnings are not a prank. That's what I loved about this police department, because there are people who would take that next step and say, no, this is something that I just can't, I won't do, I won't live with. And that's what kept me in this game for all this long time, because I've had those successes by just saying that this is not right. There ought to be a way we can find another way to do this, and we typically did. So here I am 50 years later, thinking to myself, I should have gotten out a long time ago. But you know, when you can see the results of things that you are a part of, it energizes you. It really does. And there have been lots of times that I've said, you know, I've had enough, but I always coming back. And eventually I got my PTSD got under control. My depression got under control. And I did all that without medication because I had to understand what it was that was making me sick. And I just kept probing until I did. So in the end, as I stand here before you today, looking out at all of the folks that I know, some of you I don't know, some of you I've never met, but you're Montgomery County police officers or affiliated with Montgomery County Police. And for all the trials and tribulations that we've had, with all the things Emma Grove, I mean, I was there when that girl was shot. She was due to go into the Army like 2 days before she was killed. I was there for all the insensitivity of not covering up her body. I saw that. But we have to have hope. You have to see yourself being able to direct this place to a better place. So my hat's off to Chief Manger and everybody else who is working hard to understand that every citizen deserves good policing, good schools, good fire, you name all of the things. There's no more marginalization. So that would be my credo. When you see it, identify it and work on it. My daughter's Rita, I was just telling my oldest daughter, my 14-year-old, yeah, I know. My sister said to me, she said, "You old fool." I said, but the baby's so pretty. And we do DNA tests, so I'm not. But she's reading in the 8th grade To Kill a Mockingbird. Anybody who knows that story. So she said, "Dad, I'm really queasy about using the word nigger." I said, "You know, Samantha, don't run from it, own it. Because that's when you get into trouble, when you start trying to deny stuff. It was there, and it's in print. I mean, you can't say I don't see it, because it's there. Just own it." So she came back and said, "Well, it was hard, but I talked about it." So that's me. I mean, you see it, you face it, and you try to find ways to make it better. Not to fix it, but to make it better. So tonight I stand before you 3 months away from being 78. Hard for me to believe. I wake up with a lot of aches and pains, and I can't lucky when that's only one. But I'm a lucky person. I got a beautiful family, beautiful friends. And I was able to spend 25 years in a police department that I saw go from really terrible to a really good place. So I thank you all for coming. I wanted to keep this short. I know I wouldn't, but I wanted to keep it short. There's just so much to say, but I tried to capsulize this in a way that you could see is coming from my heart, because that's the only way I operate. So thank you again. No.
I'm going anywhere yet.
I asked Margaret if I
get
was
it.
going to have to pay another fee.
No more fees to Dick, because, the coalition, we're not as rich as we used to be. And we
found that out.
Yes. So I'm going to make this announcement, Dick. Your dinner with your family is on me.
Oh.
Okay? It's on me.
I've already written the check.
No, tear it up. We won't accept it. But in appreciation, not only of you coming and supporting us and really sharing with us a great history story that really goes a long way. And I think it helps those of us who are still in the game. Mm-hmm. And even if we're not, we're still teaching our younger folks, right, how this works. This goes a long way for us. And so with that being said, we have a very special award to give to you in honor of you. in honor of you being a
I'm an old
trailblazer.
man.
I know, we'll hold it for you. I'm not gonna let it fall on your toe. But to honor you for being a trailblazer for all of us, not just African American officers, but all officers in Montgomery County.
Thank you for saying that,
and
yes.
for absolutely for everything that you've done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless you.
See, it's been, what, 14 years since I retired, so I forgot a lot of stuff.
It's all good.